to Carbonation for Impatient People.
I'm Greg.
I'm Julie, and we're the Crafty Winers.
We've been wanting to do this video for quite a long time, talking about forced carbonation, but I had to try to get our method down to something that was reproducible for you and something that wouldn't leak, and that's taken months literally to get the right pieces together. So now we're ready to show you finally. So we have different ways that we've tried forced carbonating. When I say forced carbonating, I'm talking as opposed to natural carbonation, which is Julie's thing, where you use yeast and sugar after a beverage is already fermented to get it to ferment again in the bottle and produce carbonation that way, which can take 3 weeks or so, and
He's not that patient.
I'm not that patient, and it doesn't always work. So I was after something that works and is a lot less time to get the level of carbonation that you want. So I've tried multiple things. This is a lid for a Corny Keg that has a diffuser on it, and it pumps oxygen in. And I've tried it, and it kind of works. You've got the more manual method of getting your Corny Keg and giving it CO2 and rocking it. And if you look, you'll find a lot of videos on that. It kind of works. It takes a lot of rocking, and then you don't have a lot of control over the level of carbonation. And then it also takes 3 days or so for the carbonation to stick. So none of those made me happy, so I'll show you what did end up making me happy. So this is the contraption that I came up with. And this isn't my own design. This is taking several people's input. There's also a commercial product out there that does something similar. But this one I came up with as far as the actual configuration. So we start with a quick disconnect gas connector, and this is 5/16 hoses, so this will go right into a gas manifold. This piece is the actual secret. This has a gas diffuser on it. So the gas is pumped in and goes through a diffuser and joins with the gas that's going into, or the liquid in this case, that's going into your Corny Keg, and the liquid that's coming out of the Corny Keg. So this circulates from out of your Corny Keg through the diffuser and then back through the pump and into the keg. And so what I struggled with is you get hose clamps that come with almost anything that is meant for Corny Kegs, and these things are the biggest pieces of crap. I wasted so much time with these trying to get them to work. They don't tighten down enough, so when you're talking about high PSI that is required for making this work, they break if you tighten them too much, and if you don't tighten them too much, they leak. So throw these away if you're trying to use them. They're probably fine for low PSI things, but for high PSI, like what I'm going to show you here, don't use these. You want to use Oetiker clamps, which are like PEX clamps if you do plumbing ever. They look just like PEX clamps, and I think that's probably where PEX clamps came from, or maybe vice versa. But these things are wonderful. You do have to have pliers that go with them. I'll link everything that I used in the description, and I will have a better diagram that shows you how I put this together. I designed this basically on a little post-it note, and it's probably a little bit out of date because I did have to change things around when I found out I couldn't use these hose clamps. So basically, quick disconnect. You've got a couple different sizes of hose. I had to switch out these attachments on the diffuser part to get it so that it fit better with what sizes I had going on for my quick disconnects on the Corny Keg end. But again, I'll have all this linked, and I'll have a little better diagram than my post-it note to show you how this all gets put together. I've got some size reducers. You might be able to get away without those when you're using these Oetiker clamps because you can tighten these down so much, but I'll have all of the parts in here just in case you need to do it exactly the same way that I did it. So now we will demonstrate how this actually works, and I'll tell you how you need to go about getting the carbonation level that you want. Everything has been sanitized, and I'll just take this moment to go over that. When you're done using this, you do want to sanitize this and not let the liquid stay on the hoses. These hoses are intentionally short because since this is using a small little pump, you don't want there to be a lot of gravity to fight for the liquids to go in and out of the pieces. So you could actually probably do shorter than what I did. There's a reason why I have the lengths that I do, and it's because we have a refrigerator that's set up with two 5-gallon Corny Kegs that sit right next to each other. And because of that, this pump needs to move around a little bit. So the input and the output could definitely be shorter. Gas line doesn't really matter. You shouldn't be getting a lot of liquid down the gas line anyway, so you could make that longer than what I did if you needed to. But I'll show you a picture of inside our fridge and how we do that. When you're doing this method of carbonation, actually any level of carbonation, you need to have the liquid cold. 34 degrees is the optimal temperature to do this. That's a good temperature for CO2 to get absorbed into the liquid. The warmer you get from there, the harder it is for that CO2 to get absorbed. So we have this set up so that we can run this inside our fridge and keep it 34 degrees the whole time that the carbonation is happening, and for 24 hours after, which I'll describe in better detail. So to sanitize this, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can fill your keg with sanitizer, such as Star San, and actually run it through the pump. And that's probably usually the easiest way. Sometimes I don't have any kegs available and I still want to sanitize my pump. So one way that I found that I can do that is to put both ends of this setup into my sanitizer bucket. And if you look inside these quick disconnects, there's a little button in there. And if it's not the easiest thing to do, and be careful because you don't want sanitizer spraying out into your face. But if you push down both of the buttons inside these caps, while it's inside the Star San bucket, that'll open these connectors and actually circulate Star San through that way too. So you can do it right out of your bucket. There's probably another way of doing it, but those are the two ways that I use for sanitizing.
Sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
But you really don't want the liquid to sit in here for very long because it could start to harden. And then you'd have a mess to try to clean out. You'd have to actually disassemble this. And that would be the one thing about Whittaker clamps that are not the greatest. You actually have to break them to get them off, to take a tube off. But again, these are great for high PSI. We got these couple of cute 1.6 gallon Corny Kegs, which are going to be nice for us because these will actually sit on top of our 5 gallons. So we can now fit 4 Corny Kegs in our fridge. So to open these, they may have pressure in there, so I'll get in the habit of always doing the quick release to get any CO2, any pressure out before you open them. They're designed so that they don't let you easily open them if there's pressure in there, but good habit to get into is release that. So there's a little bit of pressure in there, not much. And then you can push down. It's a little harder than I expected. And finagle it out. It's easier when it's below you and you can see what's happening in there. I'm going to put the washer where I would rather it be, not inside the keg, but inside the lid. So I looked throughout the house to try to find something that I wouldn't possibly ever want to ferment. And this is what I came up with.
That was a challenge to find something he didn't want to ferment.
Yeah, I have no interest in making fermented body armor light. This is berry pomegranate flavor. I'm going to use this to demonstrate carbonating. Hey, Pippin and Nuri. And some bottles.
Nope. It just laid back down.
Not interested. So
That
you
smells
don't
good.
have to have a whole lot of liquid in here to carbonate. I've done it with as little as 16 ounces before. I don't think the amount really matters. What probably matters a little bit is having some headroom in here so that there's room for CO2 at the top. You could probably fill it all the way up and get it to work, but I would suggest having leaving a little bit of room at the top when you can. So we hook, you guys that do Corny Kegs are very familiar with how this works. The black goes to out. That's beer out. Or wine out. Sparkling wine out, you would hope.
Or cider out.
Cider out. The white side goes to in. And then this is going to connect to my CO2. So I'll just show you our CO2 setup and link the manifold that we use. We do have smaller tanks, but I don't believe they have any CO2 in them right now, so we have to use the big one. So the first thing that I do is turn the CO2 on to about where I am going to want to carbonate. And we have 2 PSI levels that we like. One of them is 32, and that's Julie likes 32 PSI for ciders. It's kind of a soda pop almost level. It's not over carbonated, and she likes it for ciders and Franken wines, I guess you would call it.
I'm sure quite a few beers would be at that level too.
It might be a little too much for some beers, but there are charts out there you can find. They don't directly correlate to how I'm carbonating, so, you know, I would suggest doing some playing and start at 32. 45 to 47 is the other level that we use, and that is where we do sparkling wines and champagne-like drinks. So that's an over-carbonated level. So those are the 2 that I use exclusively right now. I don't really try other things because we're doing Franken wines, which are like our seltzers, and champagne level type things and ciders. So anyway, turn on to one of those, whichever one you plan to use, and I'm going to do 32 for today. So the first thing that I do is turn on my CO2, and you can see that it's starting to do stuff here already. And I'm hearing bubbling inside my keg, and that's good. That means it's pumping CO2 in. But what's happening is it's pumping CO2 in, and there's still, this is full of oxygen. So to get this to carbonate correctly, you need to let some of that oxygen out. The CO2 is heavier than oxygen, so the oxygen right now should be basically at the top, and the CO2 is at the bottom. So if I do the quick release on this a few times, just kind of imagine what level it takes to get that oxygen out so that I'm dealing with only CO2 in my tank. This is a big part of success using this method. This is noisy, so the dogs are probably not going to like this. I'm guessing that's a good portion of the oxygen. So I'm going to let it kind of recharge itself again a little bit till it stops bubbling. And again, because gravity is working against this little pump, it's good to have everything as close to the top of this as you can. This is going to look really weird on camera. Inside my fridge, it doesn't look quite so weird. We've got everything sitting on top.
Kind of.
And that gives it very little gravity to fight to get up and down the tubes. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my pump on. It's not extremely loud. It's a lot quieter when it's inside our fridge. But you can see that it's kind of foamy. This was fairly clear liquid when I put it into the keg, but you can see that it's very kind of bubbly inside the tubes. It's important to use the clear tubes because you can tell that it's bubbly like that. But the key to doing this is now I'm going to turn my CO2 down until this is not bubbly like this. So we want to come back up to the 32 that I'm at now, but I need to turn it down to let it get the liquid to that level before I move to the next setting. And I usually do that 5 PSI at a time. So I'm going to turn down to about 15 or whatever I need to get it to start running clear. Okay, so right now this is running at 20 PSI. Most of the time with the larger kegs, what ends up happening is this will slow down as you're turning up the PSI from 15 to 20, say, this will start getting so bubbly that actually will quit running. With these little kegs, it's not as much of an issue, but if you have that problem with a 5-gallon keg, turn it up as high as you can until it's just barely running through the feed tube, and then let it sit there for about 5 minutes, and it'll start running clear again like it is here. And when that happens, keep turning up the PSI till it slows way down again, or you hit the 32 PSI that you're trying to get to, and let it sit. Every time it stalls, let it sit for about 5 minutes until it starts running smoothly again. and then again, turn it up another 5 psi or so, and eventually you'll get to 32. This process, I made it sound more complicated than it is. It probably takes maybe 15 minutes in total to get up to the PSI that you want. Once you get to the PSI that you want, which again, we're going to do 32 PSI. I'm turning it up. Right now it's at 25. It's at 30. Okay, now you see how much it's slowed down here. It's just very slowly moving. So I'm going to want to let it sit here until it's moving smoothly before I turn it up a little bit more. So it's really at 30 right now. So I'm going to let it sit here up to about 5 minutes before I move it up to 32. Okay, so it's mostly smooth now, and we're actually right at 32 right now. So once you get to the desired PSI, again, we use 32 and we use 42 to 45 for very carbonated drinks. Once you get there, let this keep running, preferably at around 34 degrees, so inside your fridge, for 45 minutes. After the 45 minutes is up, you can go ahead and disconnect. I like to disconnect the black one first because that's where the liquid is coming out of the keg. And most of the time, when you take that off first, most of the liquid that's in here will run out and back into the keg. So you don't have some liquid that you're losing in your lines. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. Again, you can stick your finger in there and push the button. Sometimes it'll spray at you, so be ready for that. But it'll also allow the lines to clear. The beauty about this method is that you can carbonate anything. I literally have taken flat soda that sat out for a few days that went completely flat and recarbonated it. So it doesn't matter what the alcohol level is. It doesn't matter what the liquid is. You could carbonate water if you wanted to, and it would come out
sparkling water.
Sparkling water. It would come out consistently every time. So just kind of play around with the PSI levels. You do one thing I want to slip in there before I forget, since I almost did, is use gas tape, PVE tape for the fittings. It's yellow in color. Don't use the white stuff that maybe would have come with some of the fittings. It's usually crap, and it's designed for water. The yellow stuff is designed for gas, and it's a whole lot better for gas. It can handle the cold temperatures that come with running CO2 through here. Probably the best thing about this method is that it doesn't matter what the alcohol percentage is. If you wanted to carbonate Crown Royal,
ew,
you could. I wouldn't do it. But there isn't any alcohol percentage that is going to be too high for you to do a natural carbonation. So that's why I like this. It's very controllable, very consistent. I can do 5 gallons at a time. And all I have to do is do this for 45 minutes. And then you're best to let this sit in your fridge for 24 hours afterwards. And the reason why is that allows the CO2 to completely saturate in the liquid. A lot of times if you don't do that, you can drink it. If you have a party tonight and you want to do a quick carbonation to have it ready 45 minutes later, you can. But the carbonation doesn't seem to hold as well. So you pour it in your drink, it's carbonated, and it seems like 3 or 4 minutes later, it's not as carbonated anymore. If you give it that 24-hour period to sit in 34 degrees with that carbonation in there, the same level that you carbonated it at with the pump, it holds it better and keeps that carbonation level. So get it to the level you want, run it through the pump, 45 minutes, let it sit for 24 hours with that pressure in here, and then you're ready to either drink it right out of here with a picnic spout or bottle it. And we will have that video for you here probably in the next couple of weeks, how to counter pressure bottle directly out of this at high pressure. If you've ever tried to just take liquid that is carbonated and put it into a bottle, it doesn't work. It just turns to foam. I'm going to turn this off just to get rid of the background noise. This is going to go into our fridge and keep running for the next 45 minutes. this quick disconnect actually connects to the outside of our fridge. It runs through our fridge and has a quick disconnect inside. So I can just transfer this easily inside our fridge and let this run for the next 45 minutes. Okay, so this is the outside of our storage / carbonation fridge setup. You can see our big CO2 tank there. And then there's a hole that goes through the side of the refrigerator and a quick disconnect. So it makes it really easy to turn the gas on and off, disconnect it. Then inside, you see the pump running there. Right now we are doing blood orange / chocolate cider right now. And in the right hand small keg there. And then there's some other ones that are lined up. So I can do 4 kegs basically at the same time. I only have one pump set up right now, but I just move it from one keg to the next. They get their 45-minute turn and then on to the next. So quick disconnect there again so I can easily disconnect the pump. Fairly nice setup. Worked for us pretty well. We're going to go ahead and record another video and then come back and try this, and we'll tell you how the carbonation level turned out. Okay, so we used our counter pressure bottler to fill this up, just one bottle of it.
I can see it bubbling away.
You can tell it's carbonated. So again, we did 32 psi for 45 minutes. Normally we would let this sit for 24 hours after the pump was turned off to let the CO2 that's already in the liquid get a little more saturated. We skipped that step because of the fact that we're videoing this. So this probably won't be perfect, but it's body light.
Body armor light.
It's
so
not going to be perfect anyway. And there's no alcohol in it, so this was just a test. It might be really bad. But you can see the bubbles here.
It's like having carbonated Gatorade.
See the carbonation bubbles.
Yep. See 'em. That's not terrible, actually. I didn't expect that, actually.
The armor. Should be paying attention to this.
Start carbonating your stuff. It's pretty good.
It's not bad. But you guys probably want to carbonate alcohol. But
Probably.
this was just a test. This is actually, that's not bad.
It really
probably
isn't.
Will finish that.
I kind of like it.
Maybe we're gonna have to try to ferment it after all. But I think that's all we have. I probably will think of more things. This was kind of a big subject, and kind of a last minute, we decided we were ready to go ahead and give you a video of our carbonation process. Most likely there'll be a follow-up video on this. For sure we will have a bottling using the counter pressure bottler, which is kind of an art, I've learned.
Yeah,
It's an art to not have the liquid either blown all over your face or all over the ceiling, which I've had to clean up now 3 times while I was learning this.
Thank you for watching our video. Hope you learned a lot. And like he said, he'll link everything up here that he used to put this contraption together. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you very much. We appreciate your support. Until next time, cheers.